Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're heading somewhere pretty familiar, maybe too familiar sometimes, the entertainment rooms in our own homes.
Yeah, we've got this really interesting piece, episode 6, entertainment rooms, that, digs into how these spaces came to be and what they actually mean.
Right? It's the kind of thing you walk through every day, but maybe don't stop to think about.
Exactly. And for the learner, our audience, who's always looking at the why behind things, this really touches on culture, psychology, tech, even identity, all reflected in our floor plans.
So our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to follow that thread, the history, the feel, the tech, the cultural spin, to maybe see these rooms with fresh eyes.
Sounds good. Where should we start? Maybe with how they, evolved over time.
Let's do it. The material lays out a kind of timeline, starting with, well, maybe not the start, but the key one, the living room, late 19th century.
Yeah, that's when it kind of shifted from the very formal parlor idea, became more about just general socializing, being comfortable.
Before that, the parlor, 1700s, 1800s, that was purely for show, right? For guests.
Pretty much. The public face of the home, very different from the living room, and definitely different from the family room, which pops up, mid-20th century?
Right after the war, kind of centered around that nuclear family ideal, and crucially, the TV.
Absolutely. The TV changes everything. But there are others, too, like the den, more private, sometimes seen as a retreat.
And the rec room, that feels very 1960s suburbia, doesn't it? Ping pong, maybe a bar in the corner.
Totally. A dedicated space purely for leisure activities. And we shouldn't forget the sunroom, popular a bit earlier, like the 20s to the 50s, that lovely in-between space.
It's really striking how each room type feels like a snapshot of its time. Reflecting class, what tech was available, how people thought about downtime.
And the source material calls the living room a mirror of the zeitgeist, which I think is spot on. Think about the 50s.
Yeah, you picture everyone huddled around that one TV set. Family togetherness, sort of.
But then, fast forward to the 70s and 80s, VCRs arrive, personal stereos.
Ah, right. So it starts to become a space for individual stuff, too, not just collective viewing.
Exactly. And now, today, it's everything, isn't it? Streaming hub, gaming central, sometimes a home office.
Constantly morphing. It makes you think about how differently living rooms show up in, say, a sitcom versus a horror movie.
Oh, totally. One's all warmth and laughs, the other is full of shadows and tension, both tapping into the real feelings these rooms hold.
But, and this is a really crucial point raised in the notes, having these dedicated spaces is a privilege, isn't it?
Absolutely. Not everyone has a separate family room, den, and living room. For many, one room has to do it all.
And that whole trend of open floor plans? It sounds nice, maybe luxurious.
But the reality can be, noisy and finding privacy. Or just keeping it tidy when it's always on display. That's tough, especially for working families.
Plus the cost of entry, right? Streaming subs, the latest console, even just a decent sofa. Leisure isn't free.
No, it really isn't. And that ties into this idea of leisure as a kind of class marker. It forces those questions. Who actually gets to relax comfortably? Who gets that safe, cozy space?
Heavy questions.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears slightly to the psychology of it all. The material calls the living room an emotional stage. I like that image.
It really works, doesn't it? It's where so much family life plays out publicly within the private home. The fights, the making up, the shared laughter, the big announcements.
And it's also about projecting an image, right? Social aspiration, the good couch, the curated bookshelf, the size of the TV.
Oh, definitely. We curate these spaces. It shows in the contrast between, say, a formal living room that's barely used, kept perfect for guests.
The for-show-only room.
Exactly. Versus, like, a comfy basement den where people actually hang out and can be themselves. It highlights that tension between our real lives and how we perform them at home.
And what about the gender aspect? The notes mention this.
Yeah, the traditional man cave or den, often very masculine-coded spaces, but now you also see the rise of she sheds or craft rooms claiming space in a different way.
And teenagers' rooms. Those are like mini kingdoms, aren't they? Part entertainment center, part identity lab.
Totally. A zone of autonomy. But the notes also point out, what about older adults in multi-generational homes? Do they always have a dedicated space for their recreation?
That's a good point. Maybe not always prioritized. So claiming space for fun is tied up with power, gender, belonging.
And in a world obsessed with productivity, taking time for leisure, for non-productive time, as the notes put it, can feel almost rebellious.
Or just necessary for recovery. The material frames it, especially for marginalized groups, as a radical act of self-preservation, just having that space to unwind.
It's powerful. A soft couch can be a form of freedom. That line really stuck with me.
Me too. And then there's the actual performance that happens. Impromptu karaoke, telling stories.
Dance battles, family game shows, or even using the room as a backdrop for like TikToks or YouTube videos now.
So who gets to be the performer? Who's the audience? And maybe just as important, who gets to just tune out, find quiet?
That quiet part is key. Which brings us nicely to technology's role. The notes stress that huge shift, fireplace to TV, really cementing in the 50s.
And you still see it in open-plan homes. Where does the sofa point? Usually the TV, it dictates the whole layout.
And the tech itself is just woven in now. Flat screens, projectors, smart speakers controlling everything, streaming, gaming.
Gaming's huge. The notes track its impact from, like, Atari onwards. Big change in family entertainment.
It is, and think about the way we play. Couch co-op, everyone together, versus maybe more isolated online play now. How does that change the room's feel?
And new tech keeps demanding new things, right?
Mhm.
VR needs space to move.
Yeah.
Cloud gaming needs solid Wi-Fi everywhere.
The room keeps adapting to the tech, and the tech reshapes how we use the room and relate to each other in it. It's a constant loop.
But it's not always loud and social. The notes talk about silence, solitude, and hidden uses.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because these rooms hold quiet things too. Grief, maybe unspoken tensions.
Just that feeling of emotional exhaustion sometimes, sitting there in silence.
Or those really significant personal moments, a difficult conversation, a breakup, just feeling lonely even when surrounded by stuff.
It's called the living room, but sometimes it holds life's heaviest silences. That quote from the notes really lands.
It does. Okay, what about the actual stuff in the room? Furniture as the architecture of leisure.
I love that phrase. And the sectional sofa feels like the prime example, right? That comfort-first ideology.
Totally. And then you have recliners, dad's chair stereotype, or futons for flexibility, chaise lounges suggesting a certain kind of relaxation. They all tell a story.
Even the coffee table, evolving from something formal for tea to this multitasking surface for remotes, snacks, laptops, feet.
And how you arrange it all dictates flow. Conversation pit versus screen-focused rows. It shapes interaction.
Plus, these rooms are rarely just for entertainment anymore, are they?
Oh, definitely not. Home office corner, homework zone, nap spot, pet bed area, maybe even where you roll out the yoga mat.
Which connects to another important angle, neurodiversity and design.
Yeah, the notes make a great point that for someone with sensory sensitivities, a loud, bright, busy entertainment room could be really overwhelming.
So needing quieter zones, maybe dimmer lighting options, that adaptability is crucial.
And interestingly, things like gaming or listening to music, often seen as purely recreational, can actually be really calming or focusing tools for some neurodivergent folks.
So the ideal space isn't one size fits all. It needs to work for different nervous systems.
Exactly. And then there's the final layer of stuff, the decor, display, and identity curation.
Movie posters, band merch, collectibles, instruments, books, all the things we put out.
They signal our tastes, our values, our passions. Minimalist or maximalist, sentimental or sophisticated, it's all symbolic storytelling. We curate these rooms for ourselves as much as for anyone else.
It's fascinating. Now, the notes also touch on how this looks different around the world. Cultural and global variations.
Right, it's not all sofas and TVs. In Japan, for instance, you see low tables, floor cushions, a different posture, a different sense of closeness.
Or Morocco, the majlis style, with seating all around the walls, really built for communal gathering and hospitality.
Nordic homes, and that concept of hygge emphasizing warmth, coziness, simple materials, soft lighting. Makes sense with the climate.
And in parts of Latin America, that blending of indoor and outdoor living, patios becoming part of the main social space.
It just shows how deeply cultural values shape these everyday environments.
And these rooms become stages for rituals too, right? Celebration, ritual, and memory.
Oh, absolutely. Think holidays. The Christmas tree transforms the living room. Thanksgiving means football on the TV for many.
Birthdays, movie nights, game nights, New Year's Eve countdowns.
Yeah.
They all happen here.
And the space soaks it all up. They become memory anchors, like the notes say. A certain chair, a scuff on the floor, it holds history.
A scrapbook made of sound, fabric, and time. I really like that description.
Me too. Finally, the material looks at the forgotten rooms and their return.
Yeah, like sunrooms, dens, maybe dedicated media rooms. They kind of fell out of fashion for a bit.
It seems so, but now they're coming back, reimagined for current needs.
Like what? Home offices are huge now, obviously.
Right, or mindfulness spaces, quiet zones, vinyl listening lounges are back, people setting up podcast studios or dedicated anime viewing walls, YouTube filming corners, even indoor plant sanctuaries.
So it feels like we're moving towards more personalization again. Less generic spaces, more tailored to specific hobbies and needs.
It seems that way. In an age of self-expression online, maybe our physical spaces are reflecting that too, becoming deeply personal again.
That's a really interesting observation.
Yeah.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's really clear these entertainment rooms, these living rooms, family rooms, whatever we call them, there's so much more than just four walls and some furniture.
Absolutely. They're reflections of, well, everything social shifts, our own heads, technology, culture. They're dynamic.
They act as stages for our lives,
Yeah.
holding on to memories, shaping who we are together and alone.
Uh-huh. Constantly evolving.
So for you, the learner, maybe take a fresh look at your own spaces after this. What stories are embedded in your living room? What functions does it serve, really? And thinking ahead, how might it change to better fit what you need for connection, for quiet, for just having fun?
Yeah, what does your space say? And what do you want it to say next? It's something to think about.